There is anger that has been building up over this video of an arrest, video that's gone pretty viral by Border Patrol agents in Southern California. It was caught on cell phone. We're going to show it to you, but it is, of course, disturbing. You can see somebody on the ground surrounded by multiple Border Patrol agents. So you can see he's getting essentially punched in the head while being held down. He then gets loaded into a car. There's people in the video you can hear in the background asking, why are the officers hitting him? And just this afternoon, you had the Department of Homeland Security pushing back, saying that this man assaulted federal law enforcement officers with a weed whacker, calling media coverage a completely slanted portrayal. They posted another angle where you can see the man running with the weed whacker. It doesn't necessarily show an assault that we can tell. This man, now confirmed by NBC News to be Narciso Barranco, a landscaper working in Santa Ana. One of his sons telling us that all of his children are American citizens, either active duty Marines or veterans, and telling Julia Ainsley it is not in his father's character to attack anyone, that he was in fact acting out of fear.
They had their guns out. He was scared. They didn't have any type of identification on the front of their vests, so he just ran away.
I want to bring in Julia, who is joining us now here. In super plain English terms, Julia, what happened here? What led to the moment that we saw in that video, and what has happened since then?
Yeah, well, we spoke to the son, who was the oldest son, who was on his way to visit his father in ICE detention. He said his dad was on his way to a landscaping job. He is an illegal immigrant. He came to the country from Mexico. He'd been trying to get legal status in the country for some time. He had 3 U.S. citizen children who served with the Marines. But he said that he was picked up, and he didn't understand who it was who was chasing him. This is according to the son. Now, DHS has a much longer statement on this. They say that the illegal immigrant ran. They're talking again about this man's father here. They're saying that he ran, and then he would turned around swinging what was a weed whacker directly at an agent's face. He then he rushed through a busy intersection, and he raised the weed whacker again. They go on and on, Hallie, really to say that he resisted the commands and that he did not identify himself. In this case, I think what's happening, though, and we're seeing this time and time again, is people not knowing who these agents are. And so they're putting up defense, thinking that these are masked men without any kind of identification on the front of them, exactly saying who they are. And so we asked the son, did they use minimal force? Because according to that statement, they said DHS and ICE officers, and in this case, Customs and Border Protection, are trained to use the minimum amount of force necessary. I asked him if that happened. Here's what the son said.
Absolutely not. I think it was the maximum right before using lethal force, because they were beating on his head. 200 plus guys, 200 plus pound agents or whatever they were, beating a 5'7", 150-pound guy with no type of weapon. So no, I don't think it was the minimum amount, and I don't think they handled it professionally.
And he says, Hallie, that the reason the weed whacker was there was it was his father's landscaping business, and he was trying to basically defend himself, not hurl it at anyone. And he says the first thing his father said when he called him from detention was to tell him he was okay, to ask him to go finish the job that he started at someone's home, and to make sure his gear and his truck were safely packed away.
I'm glad you had a chance to talk to the son, because there's been a lot of attention around this incident. And part of what DHS said in response to this, Julia, was that, assaults against law enforcement, against our law enforcement officers and teams and agents are up. We also saw the agents in that video masked in baseball caps. That's becoming more and more common, right?
Yeah, not only is it becoming more and more common, people I talk to, ICE officers, former ICE agents, say it's unprecedented. Basically, they would have never used that kind of disguise when going out to arrest someone. They wanted people to know who they were. That way, there wouldn't be assaults. And they said, frankly, if someone were to chase them dressed in the same garb, they would also put up a fight, because there are some cases where you think you might be getting kidnapped.
They were wearing some kind of insignia.
Sometimes it might just say police, but then of course you do have vigilantes who could, in that case, in some cases that we've seen, try to pretend to be some kind of police. It's a really confusing, chaotic time right now. The son said that his father knew it was a risk every day when he went to work, that he could possibly be picked up. I don't think this is exactly how he expected this to unfold, though, Hallie. And so, yes, his assaults are up, but I think the question here is, are the tactics escalating in a way that people feel they have to fight back and defend themselves?
Julia Ainsley, thank you very much for reporting this out for us tonight. Appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.